The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the drama playing out in real time in Tucson. The abduction of Nancy Guthrie, a case that has everyone wondering, who is that man behind the mask? Was he working alone? Did he even know Nancy? Here's the story. What should have been a quiet Sunday in Tucson quickly became a family's worst nightmare. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, mother of Today's Show host Savannah Guthrie, was last seen on Saturday, January 31st at her Catalina Foothills home. But when relatives checked in on her the next morning, she was gone. And something inside the home suggested danger. What began as a missing person report quickly turned urgent. Authorities declared the residence a crime scene, noting that the evidence strongly suggests Nancy did not leave on her own. Blood confirmed to be hers was discovered on the property, and investigators say both security cameras and her pacemaker's digital monitoring were disabled during the night she vanished. Now the FBI has stepped in and recovered images of a potential suspect, giving detectives new leads. With every passing hour, the search intensifies, and the nation watches anxiously for any sign of Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts. So this isn't a case without any evidence, right? This isn't a case where it's like a complete mystery. Like, there's video of at least one of the kidnappers. If he's working alone, I don't know. But there's video of him on the stoop of Nancy's home, so we can see what he's doing. There's other aspects here. We've learned some information here, especially about the man behind the mask. Let's bring in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, I want to talk about the man behind the mask. We've got video of the guy. What do we know about his behavior? Like, what have we been able to glean from the facts that have come out about this behavior?
Well, speaking of facts, first we know that the sheriff outlined a timeline of events that blocks out this 41-minute window where a potential suspect could have been on Nancy's property, presumably abducting her. Take a listen to the sheriff.
This is a timeline that we have been able to develop with some of the things that we've had processed, various pieces of electronics that we've gathered. Sunday morning, early morning at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnects. At 2:12 a.m., software detects a person on a camera, but there's no video available. They had no subscription, and therefore it would rewrite itself. It just kind of loops, right, and covers up. That's what our analysis teams have told us. We're not done with that. We'll do all we can, but that's what it says. So that detects a person on camera. Could that be an animal? I imagine that's possible. We don't know that. We just have no video. But we're not giving up on that. 2:28, Nancy's Pacemaker app shows that it was a disconnect from the phone.
When you say the doorbell camera was disconnected, do you believe that camera was taken?
We do not have it in our possession. We've not located it.
And here's what that doorbell looked like once investigators arrived. It's here on your screen here. You can see the spot where the doorbell camera should be, but clearly it's missing. But let's take a look back at that doorbell camera video that thousands of people have already seen now. Let's break down some peculiarities shown by this man in the video as we see him creeping around on Nancy's front porch. First, we see how he's carrying his gun. It's holstered. You see it there in front, holstered but dangling directly in front of him from his waistband. Now, Vinny, to each their own, but I feel that, we've seen enough movies and we've seen enough real-life professionals who carry weapons to know that this isn't the most ideal placement for a gun holster. So then we move along and see where it looks like he brings his hand up to knock on the door, but then it seems like he realizes there's a camera there. We see him with his hand over the camera lens now. So then what's he do? He turns around, and then he goes and grabs a plant. We see him now, he's walking back out under the archway. He reaches down to grab some shrubbery out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house, and he comes back to attempt to cover the camera with this plant, of all things to try to cover a camera lens. Now, Vinny, we also know there have been several ransom letters sent out demanding money in cryptocurrency as this story has unfolded. Now, we don't know if the person in that video is related in any way to these ransom letters, if that's the person that has sent these ransom letters out, if they're connected at all. But we do know that Harvey Levin at TMZ has received a bunch of them. And here's what he had to say on Fox News' Hannity about the ransom letters. Take a listen.
Tuesday, when we received what looked like a ransom letter, and so we called the sheriff's department in Pima, and they took the information, an Apple Watch and a damaged floodlight. What I found interesting, because we knew she wore an Apple Watch, there are pictures of her with Savannah with that watch, but they mentioned where the watch was, the placement of the watch in the house, and that's not something that was out there.
And Vinny, here's Harvey Levin also on his own network, TMZ, talking about the nature of another one of those ransom letters. Take a listen to this.
This is a highly sophisticated demand involving a form of crypto, not Bitcoin. Now, it is demanding roughly the same amount as the demand letter we received, shortly after the kidnapping, the $6 million demand. The demand graphically describes the consequences if the demand is not met.
Now, again, it's still unclear if the person in the video is connected in any way to sending these ransom letters, but the FBI has been vehement about the fact that they are taking these letters very seriously.
They are, and those are the two different tracks of all of this, right? What we know about at the house and what we've heard about these alleged ransom notes. And that brings us to the first question in our investigation tonight. Is this suspect, the man behind the mask, the person who wrote the ransom letters? Joining me, psychiatrist, forensic specialist, and medical health expert, Dr. Yalda Safai, and clinical and forensic psychologist, researcher, expert on violent crime, and author, Dr. Gary Brucato. Thank you both for being here. So we can observe some of the behaviors of the man on the porch. We have the timeline. And on the other hand, we've got a description of these ransom letters and the nature of the letters, kind of what's in there, and at least one man's impression of the person who wrote them. What are your thoughts, Dr. Safai? Do you think the same person could have done that? The guy on the porch could have written those notes?
It's difficult, Vinny, because this is such a high-profile case, and because the person who disappeared, the victim, is attached to a public figure, we're going to have a lot of imposters. A lot of people looking for their 10 seconds of fame, or people who are trying to somehow connect themselves to this public figure, or people who are just, I hate to say it, but are depraved. So we're going to have some imposters. Now, what I saw in this video of the man coming into Nancy's home, he didn't seem so sure of himself. It seems like the letters that were sent to TMZ are very definitive and making high demands, such as, Bitcoin and $6 million in cash, which, they're aggressive demands. To me, this person on the camera just seems a little bit unsure of himself, just based on his body language. He seemed confused a little bit. He went back and forth. It wasn't like he had a definitive plan in place and carried it out. But I just think because of the high-profile nature of this case, we're going to have some imposters.
Dr. Gary Brucato, this is some really interesting behavior that we observe on the video, but also the description of the notes is very interesting as well. What are your thoughts about these two different tracks and whether they are, in fact, connected?
Well, it's interesting that we heard Harry Levin describe in the last note a highly sophisticated series of demands, so forth. And I don't think highly sophisticated is a phrase that would come to mind when looking at the person on that video. The impression that I have had is that what we have going on here is one of two things. Either there is some kind of nexus between a series of individuals, one who is, let's say, in an analogy, like the cook in the kitchen, and everybody else is sort of serving the food, kind of thing, right? And the guy at the door is like the waiter. He doesn't necessarily know how the food is made. He just sort of is like the person bringing it. And then the other possibility is that this is some sort of parasitic person who is simply capitalizing and who is more motivated by something like becoming attached in infamy to a celebrated person by doing this, or who is simply looking to make a quick buck. But I think there are clues in the psychology that can be glimpsed of the person at the door and the person who wrote those letters, that they are probably not one and the same, may have nothing to do with each other. And if they do, it's just as part of some sort of group that are collaborating in some way.
Dr. Safai, what struck you the most about the video of the man on the porch?
Oh, he seemed a little bit confused. Like he was trying to knock on the door, but at the same time, he realized there's a camera there. So then he decided to cover up the camera. But if he had known the property really well, he would have known there was a camera there and would probably bring an object to begin with instead to cover the camera instead of going back. So it seems like it's a person who is not that familiar with the property and is just trying to figure it out in the middle of the night. So that's what struck to me.
Dr. Gary Bucata, do you think the man on the porch is there at the beginning of what happened to Nancy inside her home, or do you think this is closer to the end, meaning that something already happened to her inside? Either he or someone else could have been inside already, and they're planning more or less an exit, trying to get rid of a camera for an exit out the front door versus trying to make entry into the home.
It's a very interesting and complicated question. First of all,
that's why I asked you, Dr. Bucata. I'm not going to ask you easy questions.
We can't say for sure that whatever happened, whatever fate befell this poor woman, even happened at that house. Technically speaking, she may never have even made it home, and we can be seeing some staging to give the impression that she was in that home. We don't really know that for sure if you think about it. Just because there is blood, for example, leading from somebody's door to a driveway doesn't necessarily prove that they were there. I am aware of many cases that involve staging that can be really very sophisticated. If we make the assumption, if we take it for granted that she was there, what it looks like is that this is a person who has been sent by somebody who has some knowledge of this victim and her home and her whereabouts and all of that, but who, as I said, because this is more of an agent that is sort of involved and not particularly bright, is going in matter-of-factly with a sort of cool detachment like we sometimes see in people who are a little sociopathic or kind of antisocial, where he's not appropriately anxious or really getting worked up. He sort of improvises in an impulsive, foolish way like we can see in people like that. And what I think is that he is trying to gain access to the home. I think this is before, because the bag that I'm sure contains items that were used in whatever it is that were perpetrated is stuffed and sort of neatly packed on his back and everything. And my guess is what we're seeing there is the pre-stage of whatever it is that happened. I'm also not sure that he's alone.
Yeah, that's such a big part of this. Dr. Safai, great to have you on the program. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Dr. Gary Bucata sticking around. Up next, is the suspect wearing a pinky ring?
You will not rest. Your children will not rest.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Mommy, if you are hearing this, you are a strong woman. You are God's precious daughter, Nancy. We believe and know that even in this valley, He is with you.
This crime has been an act of cruelty that just is like dripping, dripping, dripping every day. It's like slow torture of a family. Unreal. Let's bring back in Cody Thomas. Cody, there's been a lot of chatter, and there's, this is all over everywhere, but I noticed a lot of chatter about a pinky ring. What exactly are people talking about when it comes to a pinky ring?
Yeah, Vinny, so we know investigators have turned their attention towards this pinky ring that they think the suspect in the doorbell video is wearing under the gloves. Now, we have isolated the image from the video, the area of what we believe to be the suspect's right hand that people are talking about. You see it there, where his fingers are bending. Maybe it's a little lump. Nothing has been confirmed that it is a pinky ring. It could be a wrinkle in the glove. Still unclear. But what is clear is that we know that NBC News spoke with Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos about this. Here's what was said. It says Nanos said that images of a suspect on Guthrie's porch the morning she disappeared could show the man wearing a ring. Quote, I look at the same photo you look at and I get it. I see it, Nanos said in an interview. I'm going to give that to my team. They'll look at that, they'll analyze it, and we'll see. Maybe it is, he said. And something else we know, Vinny, is that the internet sleuths, they love to get real invested in these stories, so we'll see if this pinky ring thing holds any weight moving forward in this investigation.
And it's a great point, right? I get it that you've got hundreds of officers looking at this, but when you have a piece of evidence like a video or something else, you've got millions of people looking at it. And different eyeballs may see things a little differently. Interesting the way this is transpiring. Brings us to the next question in our investigation. Is the suspect wearing a pinky ring? What do we think? And if so, what would be the significance of that? How could that potentially help here? Joining me, private investigator Jason Jensen, and retired police officer after 2 decades, an expert at analyzing crime scenes. I don't know if he wears a pinky ring or not. Dr. Mike McCutcheon is with us as well. First of all, it's interesting that's on the right hand. If you watch mob movies, which I do, right, it's always the right hand that the mobster's got his pinky ring on. But what do you see there, Jason? Do you see the potential that he's wearing a ring?
Well, Vinny, when you look at that screenshot, that's an easy conclusion to suspect that there's something under the ring, that it could be a flat surface with an oval face. But in my analysis of it, that's low light infrared. And when I convert it to natural light, it to me looks like a seam. If you notice, the top corner of that follows a linear path down to the knuckle, and it looks like a tear in natural light. So I think it's a tear in the glove. But, it's hard to determine who a suspect is just simply from looking and analyzing of potential rings. We have to stay broader and not be too focused, because if it's not a ring, we're chasing down a rabbit hole.
Mike McCutcheon, looking at examining evidence, and when you have a video, every frame you've got to go over, you've got to look at it. What are your thoughts, number one, about the pinky ring, and overall about looking for things that maybe other people don't necessarily see? Because we watch the video, we're looking at the guy, and we see this guy with a mask, and we're like, oh, there he is, the guy with the mask. What are investigators looking for, and what do you see?
So I agree with Jason. I wouldn't be putting out information that it's a ring unless you knew for sure, because what happens, and this happened in major cases all the time. In 2013 at the Boston Marathon bombing, the newspaper published pictures of the wrong people, and then they got thousands and thousands of tips from people reporting on the wrong people that were put in the paper. And so the same thing here is, I don't want to exclude somebody who isn't wearing a pinky ring because it's reported that there is a pinky ring. So unless they can confirm for sure, I think the infrared, it does very weird things, like Jason said. So I wouldn't put it out there that it is or it isn't. I wouldn't confirm either way. And when you're looking at a video, investigators would look at this video. They're going to take this frame by frame, and they're going to look at everything. They're going to watch this video hundreds of times, frame by frame, looking at every piece of clothing, where he came from, everything in the background. There's not going to be any square inch of this video that hasn't been analyzed by investigators looking for anything. And I think if they were able to determine for sure that there was something under that glove, at this point where there's so little evidence coming out of this case, they would have told us that that's the case.
Jason, what are your thoughts? Are there things in that video that you think maybe people could be focusing on a little bit more? And when I say people, I mean investigators, maybe focusing on a little bit more that aren't super obvious to us?
The things that really stood out to me is the fact that there's that Ozark Trail backpack from Walmart. There's only so many Walmarts in the area down here in Arizona. So the shopping receipts is really where I would be looking as an investigator, because it's likely a local purchase, especially in light of the fact that there was Google search results looking for Suzanne Guthrie's pay history right before this particular kidnapping occurred.
And Mike, the other thing about the video, and I wonder about this.
Yeah.
I used to work for Turner, and we know that they took old movies and they colorized them. Have you ever seen like this infrared or whatever taken and then transformed so you could see the colors of everything? Or have you not seen that done?
You can do that. I don't know the, I'll say the accuracy that it's going to be 100%, but that is something that certainly they would be able to do. Why they haven't done that, I'm not sure why they haven't released that. That is a technology that does exist. It is, again, the accuracy of the colors or whatnot may be a little bit off, but that is a technology that you can do.
All right. Dr. Mike McCutcheon, Jason Jensen, both sticking around. Still to come. What's inside that backpack?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation of the abduction of Nancy Guthrie. With every new development, there is renewed hope that she will be found and renewed prayers that she'll be found alive. Here's the story. 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie vanished without a trace from her Catalina Foothills home, leaving a family and community in shock after she failed to appear for church services and relatives discovered alarming signs inside her home. What began as a missing person report quickly turned into a full-scale criminal investigation, with authorities saying the evidence points to a chilling abduction rather than a voluntary disappearance. Surveillance footage captured a masked figure on her property in the dead of night, armed and carrying a backpack. Blood confirmed to be Nancy's was found on the scene. Mysterious ransom letters soon appeared, adding to the terror. The FBI has now joined the search alongside local investigators, and the case has captured the nation's attention, intensified by Nancy's connection to her daughter. Today's show host, Savannah Guthrie. Who is the shadowy figure caught on camera? Are the ransom demands genuine? And with thousands of tips pouring in, which crucial clue could finally bring Nancy home? So you look at this case, and there's a lot of unusual things about it, right? You're kidnapping an 84-year-old woman. But was that the plan? What was the plan? What was this home invader, this kidnapper, this abductor, what was he planning for that night? Let's bring back in Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. So I watched the video, I look at the video, and I see a guy with this backpack, right? To me, if we could figure out more about the backpack, what do we know, what don't we know about this backpack?
Well, of course, it's clear that he is wearing one, and we know that police have identified what kind of backpack that they believe it to be. Now, they say it's a black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. 25 liters, that sounds a decent size to me. But the thing, Vinny, about this Ozark Trail brand specifically is that it is exclusively sold at Walmart. So we're taking a look now at the backpack compared to some images from that doorbell video. We also know investigators are, of course, actively working with Walmart as this case develops because they also believe the suspect's mask and clothing were bought at Walmart too, and there's speculation circulating online that the mask could also exclusively be sold on Walmart.com specifically as well. But Vinny, if we slow things down even further, we see there on the screen, and take an even closer look at these images, that backpack looks pretty full. I think it's safe to say it's a full backpack on his back there, but the thing is, we don't know what's in it. Now, he's not moving very swiftly as we watch that video, which could imply that this backpack is heavy, filled with some things, but again, it definitely looks full. We just have to figure out what the contents inside that backpack are.
Absolutely. Well framed, Cardi. Takes us right to the next question in our investigation. What's in the backpack? Like, if you knew what's in the backpack, to me, that would tell us exactly what the plan was, what this was all about. Still with me, forensic psychologist Dr. Gary Brucato and retired officer Dr. Mike McCutcheon. Dr. Gary Brucato, what are your thoughts? It's a full backpack that he's got, so he's planned something here.
Well, part of the problem is that currently it's unclear if this was an abduction that went haywire, it was an abduction that worked out, and we have a living victim somewhere, or if this was a homicide that is being made to look like some kind of abduction. And the reason that that's essential here is that it would give us an idea what was in that bag, which of course is filled with everything that would be necessary to do whatever one was planning. My sense is that one thing that is certainly in that bag is some sort of cloth harp or a sheet that would be necessary probably for the movement of an individual living or, I hate to say, potentially deceased. That is a method, for example, that is commonly used by hunters, where you're able to lift a heavy animal by lifting a sheet. And I don't necessarily think that that's something that one could do alone. I know that Ms. Guthrie was about 5'5" and about 150 pounds. I can envision that that's something that at least two people would need to sort of lift together, that weight. But my sense is that there's some sort of cloth in there and items that would be necessary for an abduction or the removal of a person, like that, a tarp.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, what are your thoughts about that jam? I mean, that's filled. That is not like half full. It looks like it's completely full, that backpack.
Yeah, it's difficult to speculate what's in it because it could be anything. It tells us two things. More of there was some plan to go in because it is filled with whatever items that person needed to commit the crime. So there was some pre-planning. It tells us that. I also think that it shows, and there's lots of discussion on whether this was someone who is more skilled or professional or if it's an amateur. I say that if you're trying to abduct someone in the nighttime and you still have the reflectors sewn into your backpack, that would show that is an amateur doing it. So there's more to learn from the backpack, the psychology, and I know Dr. Gary agreed with on this. Is you can tell that this was more of a plan than something that they just happened to roll into. So whatever's in the bag, it could be changes of clothes, it could be weapons, it could be anything to perpetrate the crime. But I think more what I would focus on is that it shows that there's pre-planning, that it shows that some of the amateur stuff with, again, those reflectors to me say they did not, this is the first time they're doing this. They didn't take care for those type of things.
Yeah, and just a quick follow-up, Dr. Mike McCutcheon. If he opened that backpack inside, what are your thoughts there about being able to recover something that may have been left behind from this individual?
That's a good question, because if they open something and they're taking anything out, Locard's theory, every contact leaves a trace. If they're putting that backpack down, they're taking something with them on that backpack or leaving something behind. And if they're taking anything out of that backpack, the same thing. They're leaving something behind, whether it be a change of clothes, maybe there's something to cover her up or cover her face so that she can't see where she's going. Whatever it is, there is going to be a transfer of some sort. Every contact leaves a trace, and so whatever is in there, if it's taken out inside, it's going to leave something behind. Whether we have the capability to detect it or not is questionable, but it is absolutely every contact leaves a trace.
And Dr. Gary Buccato, on another note, the dangling gun, which is in plain sight. If he's inside, she's going to see the gun there. What are your thoughts about how he's carrying the gun and why it's visible?
I mean, I think that the whole thing screams of a kind of amateur hour, that this is an individual who hasn't really had much experience with using firearms. I mean, for example, has been pointed out in several places, the holster doesn't even match the firearm. The way that it's being held is sort of silly. So I'm not so sure that it was anything other than just not really knowing how to properly do it. But I imagine that if the idea is that, he had put thought into it, I mean, I'm sure that the point of having it kind of displayed in that conspicuous way is to be kind of terrifying and assert, I'm willing to really hurt you if you're not going to come along with me, that kind of a thing, because it would be terrifying. I imagine that it was dark in there, but if somebody woke up, let's say, and were to see that, I can imagine that it would be extremely frightening, and somebody might be trying to assert a little bit of power or domination by having it so conspicuous, but I really think it's because it was amateur hour that it was just dangling like that.
Dr. Mike McCutcheon, do you think you could operate that gun with those gloves on?
I can't tell for sure. Those gloves seem pretty thick, and I know from all of the training that I've done in firearms is I would try to wear the thinnest gloves possible so that I was still able to manipulate my weapon. Again, if he is an amateur, he may not know. I know that because I practiced with it over and over. If he's wearing gloves that are too big, that he's not able to get his finger into the trigger guard quickly, that would be something that you would have to practice with and know. So whether or not he can or can't, it's tough to tell just because I don't know the thickness of those gloves. But again, just with that, how it's being carried, I highly doubt that he has trained or practiced wearing those gloves and firing that gun with those gloves to see if it would actually work.
Big thanks, Dr. Mike McCutcheon, Dr. Gary Buccato. Great to have your insight and your valuable time. We appreciate it. Up next is the Pacemaker, the key to finding Nancy Guthrie.
We love you.
We love you, Mom. Stay strong.
We love you.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Central Units Copy ATO. Simply reference missing person under PTSD at 5820-5820, West Escalante. Copy reference Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, powder blue, rings after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
Cardiac issues and a pacemaker, big part of the story and a big part of what is so scary with 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie being taken. Let's bring back in Cody Thomas. Cody, let's go through it. What do we know about this pacemaker?
Well, we know exactly what time it disconnected from Nancy's phone. That was 2:28 in the morning, the day she went missing. Now, we also had a doctor on the program explain what data we may or may not get from her phone. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The data that is transmitted from the pacemaker to the app is quite limited. As you can imagine, there are a lot of sensitivities around security, but also battery life. So the manufacturers are very careful about minimizing the amount of data that is transmitted to these apps, mainly because we don't want to overtax and drain battery from these pacemakers. It's not like an Apple Watch where every few seconds or minutes you have a heart rate that's recorded via light sensors in the back of your Apple Watch that then get transmitted to your phone and get stored in your application, in your health application there. This is very different. This is really meant. The daily checks that are done in these communications between the pacemaker and the phone are really meant to alert patients and their clinicians if there's, say, a very dangerous heart rhythm or something malfunctioning with the device. So these emergency alerts can get sort of transmitted.
Now, we are getting an idea of how investigators are attempting to locate Nancy's pacemaker. In fact, video from Fox News shows exactly how they're going about it. Helicopters are flying very close to the ground, and according to David Kennedy, the inventor of the pacemaker signal detector, pacemakers give off a low-energy Bluetooth signal. And that signal typically communicates with the mobile device to send out diagnostics, but can also be detected by what is being called a, quote, signal sniffer at certain distances. Now, David Kennedy explained exactly how this technology is being utilized by investigators on CNN's Aaron Burnett Out Front. Take a listen.
And so what they're doing here is that they're flying really low to the ground because the distance you have to be able to intercept that transmission, that signal, that packet, is very low. So they're sweeping the areas looking for this transmission. And I was able to confirm that, based on the pacemaker that she has, it will broadcast every about 3 to 4 minutes or so with a very small transmission that if authorities are able to capture that, can triangulate exactly where Nancy is directly off of her pacemaker.
And Vinnie, I think it's becoming even more readily apparent that investigators are bringing out every single tactic here in this investigation. So hopefully something turns up soon.
Absolutely. Cody Thomas, great work tonight. Thanks so much. Let's get to that final question in our investigation this hour. Is the pacemaker the key to finding Nancy Guthrie? Still with me, private investigator Jason Jensen, and joining me, forensic lawyer and scientist Rory Safer. Rory, what are your thoughts about this? Is this the key? Could this be the piece of technology that helps find Nancy Guthrie?
Well, I think this pacemaker is, what you could call the most objective witness so far that we've seen. So it does a few things, and you've heard from some of the other folks about how it works. But so we've got this time of 2:28 on February 1st, and so what that does from an investigative standpoint is it allows them to kind of anchor everything around a specific time. So they can anchor any kind of surveillance footage, phone records, digital activity around that specific moment. And so it's kind of the first, it's probably the best way that they might be able to find her. Yeah.
Jason, what are your thoughts about the role that the pacemaker is playing? Rory makes some great points here about establishing a timeline, which is so important in all of this. You got the sniffer out there trying to track it down. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's quite interesting how they're going about looking for this pacemaker, and it often follows the technology, given the fact that this pacemaker will emit a signal. I do TSCM all the time, where we're looking for bugs and other devices in people's homes. So it follows along the same principles. They're looking for a signal coming from the device. Given the fact that it's periodic like that every 3 or 4 minutes, it's not as reliable as a constant emission of a transmitter. But I would think that if she's kept alive somewhere and she still has that pacemaker active in her, it's going to be trying to log into any Bluetooth device. It wouldn't be a bad idea for everyone in Tucson to open up their Bluetooth signal to see if they pick up a foreign object and be mindful of it.
Rory, what are your thoughts here? Like, they're getting thousands of tips, and what if there are specific tips about specific places or homes? Do you think they might do a flyover to try to see if they could pick something up that might lead to maybe a more specific probable cause?
Yeah, so what we see now is as this kind of investigation expands is, we've got the DNA evidence as well as this pacemaker evidence, and so they can kind of combine that with what the timelines and so forth that they already have, and so we're moving from kind of broad evidence to more forensic reconstruction. So I think. With the helicopter and with the technology that they have to expand what they're able to get from the pacemaker, it could lead to something.
Jason Jensen, what does your gut tell you about how close or far away she might be, right? Because with the pacemaker search, it's going to be relatively close. What are your thoughts here?
Yes, the pacemaker is low energy, so it has to be within a certain distance from a device to connect. So I think from the developers, they should get an idea of what the radial distance is from a particular device is. Then you have an idea how close you have to be to register that into your signal detection equipment. And I think that's probably a wise thing to share with the public.
And just to follow that up, Jason, do you think whoever took her has kept her in the Tucson area, or do you think she could be far away?
Right now, we have no reason to believe she's out of the area, because to do so, there's going to be spottings of somebody, being, whisked away in a vehicle or something. So I would think that she's still in the local area myself.
Rory, what are your thoughts of confidence here? And I'm asking a lot of guests this question, but how close do you think we are here?
So we've got this pacemaker. It's objective. It's going to show what it shows, and then my understanding is the DNA from the glove. It didn't show anything in the national crime database, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that whoever's DNA it was isn't in, hasn't committed a crime, or for whatever reason they're not in the national crime database. But my understanding is that they're now comparing that to databases like 23andMe or more to see if they can find anything. So if they are able to get something with either one of these two, I think pretty significant pathways, whether you've got the pacemaker or DNA, there might be something there. But you're right, it's hard to say. It is a bit of guesswork.
It is frustrating, and for that poor family. Jason Jensen, Rory Safer, great to have you both with us. Thanks so much. All right, we're getting closer to 3 weeks in this investigation, and it's becoming more and more difficult to imagine Nancy surviving this ordeal. But we know two things. Savannah and the family still have hope, and Nancy is one tough cookie, and that gives me hope. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.